would like to understand the true meaning of sin according to the Holy Quran. There was a discussion about this subject. What we already discussed is sin is doing against the commandment of Allah. There is express injunction in the Holy Quran that we must accept the message of Allah through the messengers. Now those who have accepted, they are the lucky ones, they are the righteous ones. And those who haven't accepted this, though the message has reached, they are the sinners. But there are other two categories. One who haven't received the message, but they have the means to understand and to find out what the message is. And the second category of those people might be at the present stage in this world, who do not know what the message is of the promised one especially, and they have no means to find it out. So I would like to request you.
But you know the answer already, don't you?
Not for you.
No, I'm quite certain you know the answer. You being a just man, how would you behave in this situation? If you were to punish someone for some offense, some omission, some commissions, what would be your reaction to these situations?
I would let those people go because they are not sinful, because they have no means and they did not receive the message.
And punish whom? Whom will you punish them?
Allah would
I'm asking of you.
The first one who have received the message and they haven't accepted it.
And you forgive the rest.
Those, the middle one, the first category, who had the means to find out the message, but nobody else has put the message to them. So I think they have certain extent to be blamed. This is where the discussion is.
So this is your reaction to them. Now, if you positively know that they are to be blamed to a certain extent, you will punish them only to that extent, won't you? Not beyond.
No.
So how can you conceive of Allah being less just than yourself? You know the answer?
Yes, I understand.
Yes, so you know the answer.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Before Mr. Bashir takes up the floor, anybody who has a question, he should ask. Then I won't leave. I know. I'm so full of questions today.
In 1882, the promised Messiah claimed to be the reformer of the century, and then in 1889, he founded the Ahmadiyya movement. And then in 1891, he claimed to be the promised Messiah and Mahdi. Why were these three stations bestowed to him on separate occasions rather than on one occasion?
What's your education, please?
In what direction?
What is your education?
Education?
Yes.
In my career? Or
Your education, whatever it is, and your degree, and whatever you hold in your BSc. And
PhD.
Huh?
He said PhD.
BSc.
BSc. And did you clear the A level as well?
Yes.
You did. And also the earlier certificates before you entered the A level?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
All at once?
No.
Why not?
One has to go through a gradual process of learning.
Because, not only that, you could not be loaded all at once. Because in the beginning, when you were a child, it was not your capacity to become PhD there and then. You had to be prepared for the load which gradually got increased and prepared you gradually for greater load to receive and carry. So this is just an analogy which doesn't mean it applies literally in every sense. But from this you can understand that if Allah throws responsibilities on His chosen ones, which are very onerous, and sometimes ordinary people, if they try to carry the same weight, they will be crushed underneath. If Allah throws all the responsibilities all at once, suddenly, what would happen to those poor chosen servants? Even the first time when they are told that they have been chosen for some work, they shake and go into trepidations about it. This is exactly what happened to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was to be Khatamul Nabiyyin. Later on it was told to him. But in the early revelation, when it was just said to him, just this commandment, Iqra, read out, that was so heavy upon him and lay so heavy upon him that he almost fell ill. So this is the merciful Allah who is all wise too. How could you expect him to burden someone all of a sudden and entirely without preparing him gradually for that task?
So there's been prophets before who've been killed by man, and for example John the Baptist. So isn't it possible to assume that they weren't true prophets as a result of them being killed by a man would be?
I couldn't follow your question.
I mean, the fact that they were killed by another person.
Come forward.
Okay.
Here.
The fact that they were killed by another human being.
What does it prove, that fact?
It proves that they possibly suffered the wrath of God.
It doesn't prove at all. It doesn't prove this at all. I mean, how do you lay this standard first? What is the foundation of this belief? First establish your foundations. If somebody is killed by someone else, will you infer that he has suffered the wrath of God?
Well,
you know, the verse in the Holy Quran, one verse in the Holy Quran rejects this idea taken, because the Holy Quran tells us, Ma Muhammadun illa Rasul, qad khalat min qablihi rusul, afahim mata aw qutila. أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انْقَلَبْتُمْ عَلَىٰ أَعْقَابِكُمْ. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad, he is one of the prophets, and all prophets before him have passed away. So, if he likewise dies or is killed, will you have a right to turn about and leave him alone? What do you infer from this?
yes, I felt, although I cannot appreciate
the meaning of the other verse, which perhaps is casting this shadow of doubt on your mind, is misunderstood by many. There is another verse, لَوْ تَقَوَّلَ عَلَيْنَا بَعْضُ الْأَقَاوِيلِ لَأَخَذْنَا مِنْهُ بِالْيَمِينِ ثُمَّ لَقَطَعْنَا مِنْهُ الْوَتِينَ فَمَا مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ عَنْهُ حَاجِزٍ. That verse says that if I'm speaking about Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you say that he has concocted the entire Quran, and we are not doing anything, as if you feel for our cause much more than we do for our own cause. Why is the other way around? You don't know whether we spoke to him or not. We know whether we spoke to him or not. So if he had changed even a single word or attributed a small saying towards us, we should have caught him by the right hand and cut his jugular vein. This is the verse which is interpreted by some to mean that such a person who claims to be a prophet, and if he is killed, murdered, then he must be a false prophet. But it stands, if this meaning stands in contradiction to that verse. So, yes, so it is wrong. The true meaning has been explained by Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, who says that it means that Allah would destroy his cause. Allah would bring him to naught. He would be treated so by Allah that everybody would see that he is not with him. In fact, Allah will annihilate him totally. That is the meaning, not the other one. Yes, please. Shiri outside, please. Your pocket is bulging with questions right now. You see? All this... all these papers in your right hand pocket, are they all questions?
In my right hand?
Yes.
Most of them are questions. There could be any old questions, I don't know, in that. May I request Hazur to kindly mention, for the benefit of us all, the services rendered by Talimul Islam College and Madrasa Ahmadiyya in the history of Ahmadiyyat. I am sure this will inspire us all, particularly our youngsters, to follow in the footsteps of our dedicated elders who studied in these great institutions.
You better prepare an essay on this and read it. Right?
If somebody can help me.
May Allah help you.
They don't know because they are not seen.
Of course, they don't know. So, but tell them, you are not gangsters. You know. Right? Write a paper and give it to the Amir Sahib and arrange some meeting for this particular purpose. In one of the jalsas, Salama Jalsa and other things, you can read out this very interesting paper.
Some of the ulamas can volunteer to help me.
Well, you can approach them, there is no inhibition.
They are so too busy, so they will do
To speak to you. So that's that. You think only I am not busy. All right, the second question, please.
That's right.
Let's do it.
No, so if a child...
No, go to the microphone. Ask the next question. Yes, please.
Do if you allow me 1 minute only for this. Not for a question, but just Some people do some good deeds instinctively and think it a virtue.
Instinctively, correct?
Instinctively.
Instinctively.
Would Hazur kindly explain the explanation of a true virtue described in the Holy Quran and Hadith of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
The definition of virtue is to do something for the sake of Allah of volition while you had the chance not to do it. And there is a decision behind it, positive, conscious decision, that I am going to do it for the sake of my Lord. And not to do things for the same purpose. Both these are virtues. So, I think you were expecting a longish answer.
If that is the speed, I will
To the advantage of everybody else. Yes, this is the answer. He said he has two types of questions. One long question with short answer, and then short answer question with long answer. Unfortunately for him, he is sticking to the first category.
Huzur, I might find some questions which will have. Sometimes when our Ahmadi friends meet their friends and invite them to join Islam and Ahmadiyya movement in Islam, they receive this sort of reply that they believe in Allah Ta'ala, the prophets, the books, and do good deeds. What else shall we gain by joining Ahmadiyyat? Although we try to explain in our own way, we shall be much grateful if Huzur kindly advise us as to what kind of explanation should be given in such cases.
First, explain your own way, so that I know what you already know and what you have already done in this direction.
First, Huzur, to my mind, is that what we gain is first that we become what Allah Ta'ala wants us as human beings.
But don't they do that? This is the question.
Yes.
The question was, when we believe in all the essentials and fundamentals and also do good deeds, what is the need for believing in someone at all? This is the question.
The thing is, they start, for example.
No. I'm not asking explanation of your question. I want to know what answer do you give to this question, as you said already, that you give some sort of answer.
Yes, Huzur, there are many aspects if you
Yes, please.
allow me
Explain.
to think and then tell. First is that I only quote the major differences between our other friends. For example, we say that we believe in all the prophets. Anybody who comes from God, we believe him. Christian brothers, they stopped at Jesus Christ. Jews stopped at Moses. Muslims, they say after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is no prophet, whether Ummati or anything. We believe that Hazrat Sayyidina Masih Maud al-Islam was an Ummati prophet. We believe whatever God wants us to believe first. And there is a difference that they don't believe everything what God has sent.
But if that is the argument, and what would be the difference between your attitude and that of Baha'is?
No, Baha'is say that there is another difference in this one. First we believe in the Holy Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his book, revealed book on the whole. The Baha'is don't believe that book which has been revealed on the whole. They say the Baha'u'llah's teaching, they have
If they
some difference.
build the same sort of argument as you have been building against some non-Ahmadi Muslim, and say that previously there were people who believed in some book and remained behind when a new book was released and denied that book, rejected that book. Then came another book. And those who had believed in the previous book, they even started rejecting this new book and they were left one step behind.
No,
So came the Holy Quran.
in this respect, we say that Akmaltu lakum
You know,
dinakum.
what I mean to say is that this is a very dangerous argument which you are presenting in one direction while you will be attacked by the same argument from another direction. So this religious discussion is jihad, and all the rules of the game apply to this as well. A good argument is only that argument which hits against you in a manner that you are not at the same time hit by the same. If it is a two-edged weapon and you hold it in your hand, you will get wounded yourself, you will get injured yourself. So this is very important. Always take an attitude which helps you, of course, but which does not help at the same time some other enemies. Our Ahmadiyyat, or if you are discussing Islam in general with some non-Muslim, you should be very cautious what you say to him.
Secondly, we say that our other Muslim brothers who have not joined Ahmadiyyat yet, they don't have any organization, and we have the Khilafah.
What about Jamaat Islami?
But they don't have such an organization that they are just confined to a limited sphere. But we
They think otherwise. They think you are limited to a very small sphere, and they have much more elbow room than you have, and no inhibitions as far as they are concerned. They can even burn and loot and destroy things and get to power as they please, while your movements are restricted. So they feel much better off, they feel more at liberty to do things, and at the same time they enjoy a very strong organization, well supported by foreign wealth to the tune of millions and millions.
But that kind of, if they get help from other sources, we don't.
What I mean to say is the organization is strengthened further by this financial aid, and it cannot break down, because as long as the finances are there, those people will have to keep stuck to that organization, and the organization would carry some weight.
No, for them, we have got an answer that Sayyidina Hazrat, the promised Messiah, he has produced a Jamaat in which such people as pious people are have been and are there, who has spoken to the Allah Ta'ala himself. And Allah Ta'ala, they are the recipient of the ilham. But has they got Islamic, can they claim that anybody amongst them has ilham?
They don't believe in it, and they don't care for it.
They don't care
This is in fact the most important answer which should be given to that question which we have raised. It has many aspects. Number one, just for a book to be available and for a prophet to be believed in of the past is not enough for all the requirements after a long time, passage of some time. The fact is that the Holy Quran is the same, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the same, and the whole of Islamic world, whatever their internal differences, believe in him, of course. So there is no change as far as the book is concerned, as far as the belief in Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is concerned. Yet, they have changed so much from the past. In fact, it is a transformation. You cannot recognize the Muslims of today if you set as standard Muslims the Muslims of the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nobody paint a picture here and then look at the other picture painted as factually by the Muslim conduct of today. And then you know the difference, as if they belong to two different religions. That is one aspect. Unless some man from Allah comes and purifies people himself by his own example and establishes a true faith to the extent that people begin to see God as if and to be recipients of his favors, a religious movement cannot be revived. They will go on downhill forever and forever. Each step they would take in time would bring them, take them to lower heights than previously been. So this is a set phenomenon, nobody can deny this. This is exactly what is happening. Each century, after the passage, during the passage of this time, 1400 centuries, saw the Muslim Ummah at a lower step. What was the difference? The belief is the same. The book is the same. Yet the difference is between the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, being there or not being there. And that difference was so potential, so great, that it was immediately discernible after the death of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So somebody in his name, somebody in his true picture has to be raised by God to revive that phenomena of purification by a holy person. Well, to this they may say there are so many other holy persons. Yet despite those holy persons, the religions always follow a downhill path unless they are raised again, lifted again by a phenomena of prophethood, which is not an ordinary phenomena of holy people appearing here and there. And there are marked differences between this phenomena and that phenomena. In this organization and that organization, which is ordinary matter-of-fact organization of the world. The difference, main difference lies in some directions, but I am going to particularly focus on in one direction. You believe in a holy man and talk of him with respect and praise hymns to him and sing his glory and whatever you may be. People will go on applauding you as well. And they will say he is a very pious man. He goes to Data Darbar, he speaks of his piety and his nobility and high character and his great spiritual powers. So he should also be respected. And you declare that you believe in Hazrat Masih Maud and see what happens to you. This was exactly the difference at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. To believe was to believe through one's nose. As they say, to believe through one's nose. To believe was to believe in him and be deprived of all the fundamental human rights. That sacrifice which is offered in the path of truth, that is the only sacrifice, the only possible way of rectifying the people, of purifying the soul. Otherwise, just a claim. And this method was adopted by Allah not only once, not only twice. All through the religious history, which is revealed since the time of Adam to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we say the same pattern being unveiled and the same process being revealed again and again. As if this is the only pattern available to God. Yet, if you really go deeper into it and examine the whole question, every wise man would say, yes, this is the only method of revival of the people, of religious people. Because if somebody comes and for your belief you don't have to pay for anything, you only gain glory by being attached to him. false people would step forward faster than the gentlemen and than the noble-minded people. Because wherever there is something to be gained, it is always the false people who rush to it. Wherever there is sacrifice to be made, they tarry behind. And only very few courageous people go forward and accept that. So this is the purification system which also applies the seed. Good people of the good servants of Allah are being purified, not only purified, they are taken away from the masses and put in a different scale. This process ultimately absorbs the rest of the society through an alimentary canal system, not directly into their bloodstream, but they are first digested through that organization. And the same principle applies to the organization as well, and there is a marked difference between a religious organization, which is truly created by Allah, and other pseudo-organizations in the name of religion. In such organizations, if you join that organizations, you have to offer sacrifices in every direction. You have to part with your money, with your time, with everything you hold dear, and you do not gain anything substantial from participation in that organization. But other pseudo-religious organizations are always jammed with such people who have some cause to gain, some benefits to draw from those organizations. Withdraw the sources of their money and their collapse. Every time this is true, there is no single exception. All the so-called religious organizations of the present time have some support, and if you withdraw your support, they become immediately disorganized. And when you start feeding them again they get round that money, and a sort of organization is built around those financial gains. But the organization which is truly religious is built around losses, apparent losses. Losses in the material terms of money. You have everything to lose. And the more you lose, more strongly you get attached to that organization. That's a very strange phenomenon. Those who lose more are much more fundamentally attached and inseparably attached to these organizations. Those who lose less, they are weak bondage and weak ties. This is not an ordinary phenomenon. This is so distinct from the rest that even the blind should see it. So that is one reason why a messenger from Allah was a must for the revival of Islam, because this is exactly the phenomena which has been unfolding previously, every time, without fail, invariably. There is no exception in the history of religion to be quoted. So if this is so, and they believe up to the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yes, it was so. Why should this formula be changed to a very stupid formula? According to their interpretation, what will happen? One day we will see somebody physically descending from heaven, dangling in the air, and that would be our Savior. He would fight for us, he would win great battles for us, he would destroy all the infidel, and hand over the keys of glory to the Muslim world. This is the new formula according to him. Has this formula ever worked? Any time in history of religion? Was it known to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Why didn't Allah reveal the same easy formula for his sake? Was the rescue to Allah those people who suffered in the streets of Mecca and then in Medina and then at Uhud and everywhere else? Because this is reasonably, logically, honestly, this is the only way to revive people and raise their moral standards. So unless he claims that the people of today, the Muslims of today, belong to exactly the same status in morality, in religious values, as Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam brought them to. He raised them from a very lowly position to a very lofty position. But if they believe that they will still hold that lofty station, and there is no difference, then leave them alone. Let Allah decide for them, because they are not honest people. They know the truth and they don't want to accept it. But I think there will be hardly a single Muslim who will take this position. You will say, no, there is a lot of Muslims, absolutely two different worlds. And when they say that, then you can move in and tell them that to change this situation to the same or similar situation as we noticed at the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What is your formula? What is your remedy? Not individual piety. That has been a no way to the Muslim world as such. And from another angle, you can answer the same question by indicating that it is not only good practice which is important. Practice follows the beliefs. If the beliefs are distorted, then the good practices which ensue lose meaning. Fundamentally, the theory must be correct. And this is why Allah Ta'ala lays so much stress on beliefs. They are fundamental, and from them spring all the good deeds. So if your good deeds, so-called good deeds, are rooted into false beliefs, they lose the meaning. Why should the Holy Quran take up the cudgel to defend the unity of God, so much so as to defy all the false prophets, false believers to Godhood, to take a head-on battle with Christianity and everything? They're liars. What enormity they commit when they say this. These are the words of the Holy Quran. So what is the need? The beliefs play a very important role. If the theory is incorrect, nothing will come out of it. You may go on moving in certain directions, making efforts with good intentions. But if the theory is wrong, you will not gain anything. There will be no fruition to your labors. This is why in the Western world of science, there is a full-fledged developed branch of science dealing entirely with theory. First they rectify their theories, then they prove them in field, and if the theories are correct, then they gain things. If the theories are incorrect, then all the labor they put in is lost totally. So to put in labor honestly, thinking that you are right, is apparently virtue to those people who have been discussing these things with you. They think because apparently we are good, well-intentioned people, and we think we are achieving good deeds, doing good deeds, that should be enough. But if the same deeds are done with wrong intention, with wrong beliefs, they would not create any fruit. This is what is to be made understood to them. Now look at Islam. In Islam today, it is the theory which has been corrupted entirely. It is the belief which has suffered most, and the bad deeds followed. For instance, every concept which is fundamental to Islam has been broken up into many concepts. And you cannot pinpoint where the truth belongs if it were not by the process of sending prophets, and if it was not that we had received information from Allah that this is right and that is wrong. If that had not happened, there is absolutely no way of judging and deciding between these warring factions which belief is correct and which belief is wrong. For instance, Allah is one single word, and every Muslim apparently believes in the unity of God. Yet about the characteristics of Allah there are so many fundamental differences that if one is God according to one sect, the other concept of God is totally wrong because they are diametrically opposed concepts. We can't be believed in at the same time because they are paradoxical. Some sects believe that Allah is one in the sense that there are certain attributes of Allah which are not shared by anyone, whoever he may be. And he alone has those attributes. For instance, omniscience, omnipresence, knowledge of whatever is happening, knowledge of the past, knowledge of the present, knowledge of the future, and to be present everywhere in the world at the same time. This is an attribute which, according to some Muslims, some Muslim sects, is unbreakable, indivisible, and it cannot be shared by anyone but God. This is the true sense of unity. And at the same time, there are some other Muslims which are in some countries in great majority who believe that to believe in this is totally false. The Allah which is revealed to us by the Holy Quran according to them is the one who has shared his knowledge of the past, the present and the future entirely with Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He knows everything. He sees everything. And also he is present everywhere. And those who do not believe in this, they say such people have nothing to do with Islam. They should be murdered and slaughtered and destroyed because they are souls in the name of Islam. Now the God, how much different God has been created, whatever different God has been created by one people as against others, based on the Holy Quran and based on the traditions of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The fundamentals are the same, but the inferences are antiquities apart. There is so much difference. Some people say that it is within the power of God to commit crime. And such filthy words have been used by these Muslim sects that I can't utter those words. If you read, then you know what it means. That Allah can do this and Allah can steal, Allah can do that. But He doesn't, they say. Although they believe He doesn't, but He can do that. He has power to do this. This is the meaning of being all powerful according to them. And according to some others, Allah cannot do it. It's impossible for Him. Not in the sense that He will not do it, but He is incapable of doing it. And they go on fighting. Now these are their fights in fundamental. Only I have quoted 2 instances. But in Malaika, in books, in the concepts about Malaika, in the concept about the books, in the concept about the prophets, in the concept about the life after death and faith, everywhere each Muslim sect differs with others fundamentally. So which is Islam? Some say, and a majority among them do so, that the prophets can commit sins. If their God can, why shouldn't the prophets? Much more so. And not only can, they have committed sins. Yet they are ma'foon at the same time. What they believe about Hazrat Lut, what they believe about some other prophets, including Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how he reacted to his encounter with the wife of his adopted son in a certain position. So, shocking to one's sensibilities that these Muslims who say that we do not respect Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, if you analyze their beliefs, you cannot imagine what filth there is. How they dishonor Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam by believing in certain things which are not fit for an ordinary man to do. And about other prophets, there are so many stories. So this is the concept of their prophet. According to some others, the different positions are held about the prophets. And about each prophet, there are differences. Not only generally, but about each prophet, there are some scholars believe in this and some believe in that. What are angels to them? In majority of cases, the whole belief about angels is totally distorted. They believe in fairy tales now. They believe in things which fly with wings, material wings. And they believe in the singularity of the person of Israel, and they do not understand the phenomena which he controls or the host of angels which are under him. This revelation has been only made by Hazrat Masih Maud to us. This is why we think it's absolutely alright. But with the rest of the Muslims, the concept about angels is not clear. And they go on fighting with each other about that concept too. The concept about life, or the concept about death, or the revival after death, everything is gone to four winds. And yet they don't require any reformer. They don't want anyone to guide them from Allah. This is why Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he predicted the coming of Imam Mahdi or descent of Messiah ibn Maryam, he made clear the tasks, the reasons why. Why don't they read those reasons? They're so clear. Hakaman Adalan is one of the reasons described. They would come to decide between you and settle your differences. That shows you will have so many differences, it will not be within the power of man to do that, and if a man does that, he will only be creating another sect on his own. Unless he claims that it is Allah who has told him, he has no authority. One of so many Maulvis. So that means sect after sect after sect would be continuously added to the already onerous list. So this is why Allah always sends someone who, of course, he is opposed. People don't believe in him. But because there is Allah behind him, he proves by giving him the ultimate victory over the opponents, and his own sect with true beliefs freshly revealed to them go on spreading, and ultimately the same phenomena takes place as you eat food. You do not take it directly into your bloodstream, but you eat and digest it and gradually add to your system and transform it into flesh, into bone, into all the parts of the human body. So this is how a foreign society to the truth is overwhelmed ultimately. It is consumed gradually all around and transformed, given a new quality. And it is that quality which is fit for survival, not just an ordinary number. This cannot happen in religion through ordinary man-made movements. This is very obvious. So you tell him this and find out if he is an answer to these two approaches. But that's not all. There are so many other things in this.
Regarding Sayyidina Hazrat, the promised Messiah, was a recipient of Ilham. After him, some of his Sahabas, can we positively say they were the recipient of Ilham?
Yes? Why not?
There is time. Answer. You want to ask? Oh, yes.
So your short question received the longest answer.
I think the question may be slightly longer with very short answer. A few days ago, while reciting the Holy Quran, I came across the verse where Hazrat Muslim Maud described how Pompeii was destroyed. Last week there was a film on TV on last days of Pompeii, they call Pompeii. And
How do you pronounce it in England?
Pompeii.
But
Yes.
in Urdu, it is written as Pompeii.
Yes, sir.
But nobody knows in fact. So both are correct because we don't know, we never heard them utter this word themselves. So it could be anything.
In that film, they really destroyed Pompeii exactly in the same manner as Hazrat Muslim Maud had described in the Holy Quran, Tafsir Sarih. But suddenly a question came into my mind: who was the prophet due to whose opposition this city was destroyed?
Was his name mentioned in Tafsir Kabir?
No, sir.
So what was unknown to my father is unknown to me as well. So you were quite right, it would be a short answer.
During discussions in Nigeria with a colleague, we were talking about the advent of the promised Messiah. And I had my mind and I had the tapes which were made in Rabwa just prior to your being elected as Khalifa. Thoroughly you had discussed this issue where the Ahmadiyya stand is spiritual, it's not physical. Somehow he seemed to agree with all the arguments I gave, but the last question he asked, I couldn't answer that. He said, if it is true that the Minaratul Masih, as mentioned in the Hadith, does not exist and it's only metaphorical and spiritual in sense, why did the founder of Ahmadiyya movement establish one in Qadian? Though it was not completed during his life.
I understand, but you should have given the answer. He believed that this is not that menorah, yet he created that menorah symbolically again.
The objection
The
that
menorah can be spoken of symbolically, why can't it be built symbolically?
but then his objection comes that why can't they achieve it symbolically? I mean, their belief that it will happen physically like this.
No, symbol is different. For symbol, I already gave my reasons why the prediction should be taken symbolically. If somebody fulfills that in symbol, there is no harm, there is no contradiction. But if somebody builds a menorah and turns symbol into a different light altogether and says this is the menorah which was meant, then the symbol is destroyed and a material form has displaced the symbol. This is not what Hazrat Masih Maud said. He said to remind people that that person has come who was to address them from the minaret of light and wisdom. We are creating a symbol. Yes. The symbol remains a symbol, whether in form or in words. If you call it a symbol, it would remain a symbol. But if it is turned into a reality of different type, then it is of course interference.
The second question is, in the Quran, Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا بِدُونَ ذَلِكَ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا بِدُونَ ذَلِكَ.
Yes, please.
In another place, it said, لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب كلهم جميعا. So apparently, to an outsider, it appears as a contradiction, because in one place it has
You are
been.
not an outsider, are you? So it doesn't appear to be a contradiction to you.
No, if I better be explained what is the difference between Zunub and you should shirk and other.
What I want to know is,
I don't understand it. I'm
why
not
do you
clear.
say it to an outsider it is not?
Well, because I respect the book, I will not say this is a contradiction.
Even to the insiders,
Yes.
it may cause confusion.
Yes.
You admit that?
Yes,
That's
possibly.
correct now. Now you have a right to ask.
This is first.
Yes. The fact is that Allah can forgive anything, anytime He pleases. But if He makes Himself an exception, it doesn't mean that He cannot do that. Suppose you can come, of course you can come and fetch this cup of tea or snatch it from my hands. You can do it, can't you? If you don't resist, of course. But you won't do it. And if you declare that I'm not going to do it, is that a contradiction? There is, in one verse, theoretically, the concept of bakhshish, that is forgiveness, is discussed. And Allah says there is no limitation. If and when I please, I can forgive anything. So as far as your hopelessness is concerned regarding the forgiveness of sin, never be hopeless with regard to my limitations. I have no limitations. I can forgive the amount of sin however much it be. That is, in that case, the categories of sins are not described, are not meant to be discussed. The amount of sin may amount to any limits. Allah is capable of forgiving. In another instance He says, I will forgive everything. But as far as the categories of sin are concerned, one category is out of question. If you die as a mushrik, I am not going to forgive you.
Forever?
No, not forever. That is something added again. That means some punishment will be meted out according to the quality of that crime. Here we positively differ from the rest of some Muslim scholars, not all, who believe that shirk will never be pardoned in the sense that it will be an eternal punishment which will be meted out to the mushrikeen, to the idolaters. We don't believe in any eternal punishment. We only believe in eternal beneficence. And in that sense too, ultimately they will be forgiven. So there is nothing. That declaration again comes true. Even about mushrikeen, that they will ultimately be forgiven. So here it would be, even in this sense, it would be a limited meaning to that verse. I'm not going to forgive mushrikeen. That means I'll punish them somehow, and then they will be forgiven. Now, if you understand the phenomena of forgiveness and punishment after death, then you will know that this is the only possible course open to reason. Because a mushrik is one who believes that his reformation can take place, all his interests lie in certain directions, which are not the true directions. That is to say, not in the direction of Allah. So each step he is taking is in false direction. Those who believe in true God and act bad deeds, their direction is not wrong. They falter and make missteps, but their road is correct. They are moving in the correct direction. So those who have gone astray in a totally wrong direction, they have to be brought back to this direction. And this process of bringing them back to this direction is in itself a punishment. Because they would have gone so much, they would have died in a situation with beliefs that there is that God and I'm going to meet him and this, and he would come to my age. When he dies, there is no such thing. Now, if Allah forgives him, then there will be no end of this folly in the world. People are already shirk-minded, inclined towards idolatry of many sorts. So if Allah forgives, that is to say, Allah will say, all right, those were the gods you follow, and in that direction all your efforts were spent, but I love you all right. That is so illogical. And again, it would not be possible as far as these people are concerned who die with a different frame. Now I am going to further analyze, then you will understand why I say it is not possible. The fact is that Jahannam and Jannat, according to us, hell and heaven, are not something which are created outside us. They are created in a long process. And the fulfillment of your desires, the fulfillment of your ideals, is in real essence your paradise. And you're being deprived of all your ideals and finding yourself, in a situation where you have lost all the efforts of your life. That is hell, that realization. So, if somebody is building his soul all the time in the direction of imaginary gods and has developed his affinities for something which is not there, it would take some time for that soul to rectify itself. That soul would find itself blind to God and capable of seeing things which are not there. So that is total blindness. They will be looking in a direction, and they will be accustomed to looking in that direction. Their tastes would be developed in that direction. All their desires would be flowing in that direction. And yet when they die, they would find there is nothing. And they would not be mentally prepared to meet Allah because the truth will be too heavy for them. Too difficult for them to follow, and it would in fact hurt them rather than help them. For instance, if somebody has closed his eyes for many years, let him open his eyes in the bright sun, and then he would know what truth is. That light would hurt him very deeply. So suddenly to travel from total falsehood to entire truth is not possible. That phenomena of gradual reformation and change that would add new senses to the soul, that would take a very, very long time because it is not previously provided in the system. That is one way of looking at it. Why it will take a longer time, why it should be so difficult after the death, that has been described in the Holy Quran Bible. Allah says that Ma khalqukum wa la khalqukum wa la basukum. Ya wa ma khalqukum wa la basukum illa ka nafsin wahida. That you will be, your recreation would be like your first birth. Now, if you have congenital diseases, they are of two types. Some diseases deprive you of your fundamental organs. Those organs can never be added, however long that child may live. He has lived for 9 months only in the tummy of his mother, in the belly of her mother, or his mother, and he has lived 100 some years after that, yet no phenomena on earth could create the lost eye for him. But there are so many other diseases and defects with which a child can be born and cured. This is the difference which the Holy Quran is making between shirk and ordinary sins. Of course, both are diseases and maladies, but there are some maladies which will require a much longer suffering with a sense of helplessness, where your organs are not well. And there are some sufferings which are temporary as compared to the others, where there is no loss of organs. And in such cases, that the hell would be shortish, and of course, the suffering would be much more diminished than in the other case. That shows that there will have to be an ultimate transformation again before they are forgiven. Like this death, they may face another death after a long course of suffering, which will be much longer to their present life. In comparison, you can conceive of the same example. A man living his life after he has come out, has been delivered from his mother's belly. So that is, generally speaking, a relationship, a sort of relationship, not exactly measured in those terms, but as an analogy I am telling you. So as I conceive things, a mushrik would be born in the new life as a blind person who never had eyes in this life. A sinner may be born with bad sight, which could be improved by spectacles like you are wearing. You see? Some would be rectified with human aids. That is forgiveness. If Allah helps you from His own and removes your defect, that is forgiveness. But Allah reminds you that according to our own law, we are not going to break our tradition and our own law. We made it very clear to you that unless you develop all your organs in this world, you will be deprived of the same organs in the next world. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى مَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. Whoever is blind in this world will remain blind in the second world. Why are they not forgiven? Because they are the mushrikeen. They are the ones who look elsewhere from Allah. Or also those who opposed Allah and opposed diametrically the phenomena of prophethood. They would also be raised blind. So a new transformation according to my vision would take place. That life would come to an end and a new era would begin for them. Then they would be forgiven. That is to say, passing through that period of penance, they will ultimately be delivered through a new transformation. Then they will go to heaven. Yes, please. Any other question?
It's not actually a question, it's Mr. Dodd said that about Pompeii. The picture they showed the destruction of the Pompeii civilization was caused by Joseph. They show Joseph there. So whether it is right or fiction.
Is that so?
Yeah, that's what I saw. That is what they show.
It's a very interesting observation. Somebody should better look into the history and find out who was the contemporary prophet of the Pompeians or whatever they are called, when Pompeii was destroyed. That time is almost fixed now.
Yeah.
They can very reasonably say that it was in that century, in that part. So if there is a contemporary prophet living in that region or whose message can conceivably have reached them, then of course this question is answered.
They show Joseph there.
No, they show of course, but they are film people, we don't know.
Yes.
Sometimes they make thorough investigations before they make the story. And generally I think this is true. But still fiction is fiction. When they require fiction to be added, they won't hesitate. Because they have to sell their film, not just to produce facts. So this is why we cannot trust them entirely. You better see for yourself, find out if it was at the time of the Yusuf that this happened or earlier or later times. And also whether it happened there, in the jurisdiction, in the area of jurisdiction of Hazrat Yusuf or some other area. That is also to be determined.
Joseph is used the college. Yusuf or it is a Christian.
Joseph is Yusuf. Yes. Yes, Mr. Rafiq, please. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
During my time of ignorance, that is non-Ahmadiyya, that's what I say. Because I was meeting with religious people. They were having some questions which is now still agitating my mind. The question was that at the time of the declaration of Nabuwwah, Hazrat Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he and with his 2 or 3 other companions, he was alone in the world, all were his enemies. And 20 years after, when he entered the same Mecca, almost none was enemy in Mecca. And after his death, almost 70% of Arabia at that time
Revolted.
came into the Islamic fold.
After his death.
After him. Well,
They had come into the fold before his death and
almost at the same time.
revolted after his death.
well, that's also fun. But the history also tells us that in the second caliphate, Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, if I am not wrong, about 50% of known civilization also came to the Islamic fold. Egypt.
That is also not correct.
Well, maybe I'm wrong, sir. But I think most of the known civilization was
Converted to Islam.
converted to Islam.
That is
But
again
in this
a
species.
highly exaggerated statement, to say the least. Because the facts speak otherwise. In fact, if you had read the book only recently, I mean within last 2-3 years it's published, which speaks of the relationship between the conquest, physical conquest of Islam and spiritual conquest of Islam, then you will have a very different conception from what you are telling me. The fact is that this book is highly important for us because it has been written by a Christian scholar and absolutely contrary to their previous stance against Islam, that Islam was spread through sword, this scholar, this American scholar, traced history of the spiritual spread independently, conversion to Islam independently, and the spread of Islam, the temporal Islam, independently, separately. And chapter after chapter he makes maps, gives maps in two colors. That this is the realm of Islam as far as geography and the worldly state is concerned, and this is the number of Muslims and percentage of Muslims, inferring his, drawing his facts from the Muslim historians themselves, who put in a lot of labor. And you find a completely different picture emerge. Islam has a much faster, rapid conquest of some great worldly powers, but Islam spread much later, slowly, through a painful course, and a much more laborious course through holy men of Islam, gradually. And these two phenomena do not tell with each other. Secondly, even if you accept on face value what you claim, that whatever was conquered by the second caliphate became Muslim, even then it was not even 1/10th part of the entire world. Not even 1/20th part of the entire world. Because the majority of the almost entire West was untouched. Entire China was untouched. India was untouched. Southeast Asia, the entire Southeast Asia was untouched totally. Only the Arab, the Arabian Peninsula in part, and also some adjoining parts of the Iranian Empire, they were won over, that was all. And you say that 50% of the known world had become Muslims.
Excuse me, sir. What I am asking is, now the question was this one, that the period of Hazrat Masih Maud now is being compared, because he is the true follower of Holy Prophet. He is the true Ummah Nabi. God has spoken of him, the truth, revealed the truth, likewise of his master, Hazrat Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, they are comparing these two historical facts, that within a short period, the light dawned on ignorant people much faster in the time of Hazrat Rasul Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. While the true follower and true Ummati Nabi, the same speed has not been shown at this up to this time. That's what the only thing they were saying. Up to now, I could not satisfy my mind, you see, both things. That's only.
Why didn't you ask him before? You spent quite some years in Ahmadiyya, and this very important question has never been asked by you. I'm glad that you did so today. The fact is that it was never meant. Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never predicted that the spread of Ahmadiyya would be that fast or should be that fast. He predicted exactly the otherwise. When he called the same Mahdi, his true follower, Messiah, he meant that he would have some likeness to the Messiah, and they would go through the same suffering and long process suffering as the earlier Messiah did. And he would stand in relationship to me as the earlier Messiah stood in relationship to Moses. So he solved all your riddle by pointing out one single word, or pointing out to one single name, that is Messiah. He was also subordinate to Torah, to Hazrat Moses, as far as the law was concerned, and he admits it. Yet, what happened to him was completely a different story to what happened to Hazrat Moses. Allah designed a different thing, different fate for Moses and different fate altogether for Messiah and his followers. So why should Hazrat Rasul Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam call his Imam Mahdi a Messiah as well, while at the same time he says, Lal Mahdi illa Isa? He knows that there will not be two persons, but one single person. So after all, he must have some likeness to Messiah, otherwise it's meaningless. This is the likeness. That Messiahhood is a process of slow spread, but with much longer lasting effects ultimately. Ultimately, it is the final consummate victory of that message which started earlier. Because it was the victory of Torah, the victory of Christianity over the rest of the world. Truly, fundamentally, it was the victory of Torah. It was the victory of Moses. It was, of course, his religion which conquered in the world, and they still stick to him. They never denounced Moses, did they? They take pride in following the same religion, the same process, and they have been not denounced with Moses or severed themselves from Moses. And if they did, the New Testament would sever them from itself. So this is the reason why we should understand the phenomena of Ahmadiyyat in this historical perspective. The one single word used extensively about the new reformer, which was to come, that is a very telltale word, is Messiah. If nothing that happened to Messiah was to happen to Hazrat Masih Maud, then that title is totally meaningless. Then a person who has no likeness to Messiah has no right to claim that he is the Messiah referred to in the early predictions. You understand? What's your name?
My name is Sultan Mahmood.
Please go and introduce yourself first, because all the rest to question, they are familiar to us, but I haven't been able to place you who you are.
Yeah, I'm a son of Mr. Fida Muhammad of Yemen. You might have heard of.
Mr. Fida Muhammad of Yemen?
Yeah, yes, Fida Muhammad.
And have you settled here in England?
No, I went to America for my studies. I did my Master of Business Administration there. And I finished my studies now.
And now have you come here just as a visitor?
Yeah, as a
tourist or something?
Yeah.
Okay, please.
I was discussing with some of the persons about the concept of ulama. What they believe that in today's world, the ulamas are those who discover the laws of this universe. God has already made those laws and principles, and one who discover those laws are, in real sense, the ulamas of this world. But my question is, will this concept of this scientific discoveries and this sort of thing will be added to our Ahmadiyyat ulamas? Or
added?
Added means, what I feel personally, they lack a lot of scientific concepts and that sort of thing.
So you mean they lack knowledge in this direction, generally?
In this direction, yeah.
But this is not entirely true. Because the system of preparing our scholars is fundamentally different from the system of other Muslim institutions which produce their scholars. In Ahmadiyyat we have mostly Waqfin Zindagi, those who devote their lives and they come from all walks of life, high and low as we call them in the worldly terms. And secondly, they come with different education backgrounds. There are some people who did their BSc in certain scientific subjects and then offered their lives, were accepted, then taught again the religious teachings and sent to field. And there are others who did their PhDs in scientific subjects and some who took up arts. So this is the true society as exists elsewhere as well. Ahmadi Maulvi is the true picture of the society, a true reflection. If the general knowledge, the standard of general knowledge of a society is low, so that would exactly apply to the representation which is made by that society in some persons. So it all depends on the Ahmadiyya community to keep that standard high. If they keep sending Waqf-e-Zindagi, the devotees of life, from all walks of life equally, according to the share, then the picture which would evolve would be a satisfactory picture. Otherwise, gradually the trend would be that more knowledgeable, more well-off people would boycott or remain aloof, and less fortunate people, worldly-wise, or less educated people because they could not, they lacked the means, for instance, would go on devoting their lives. The result would be the one which you fear. You see? Because we won't have time enough to educate them scientifically as well. But still, we are now taking measures to rectify this possible danger. In many directions, we are taking certain steps. And one is that I have already instructed them to introduce science subjects as well in Jamia Ahmadiyya. And also short introduction of various philosophies and sciences. They should know the names of European philosophers as well as the Oriental ones. They should know the various sciences, what they mean at least. And the fundamentals of truth, the worldly truth, I mean, as well as the fundamentals of post-religious truth. So these steps are being taken, and I thank you for this suggestion, but the picture you have painted is not correct. I mean, the Ahmadi Maulvis, with the grace of Allah, are much more well versed in the scientific knowledge as well than the non-Ahmadi Maulvis. There is no comparison to be made. Absolutely.
That's true.
For instance, I tell you one incident. It was long ago when the standard of general knowledge was not that high in the community. Even when every Ahmadi Maulvi understood the phenomena that when you put cold water in some utensil, the water which is condensed outside has not gone through it. It is a different water which is condensed, and the water contained in that utensil is a different thing. That piece of knowledge was just elementary to any enemy. But once there was a great debate held in Lahore or some other place, perhaps it was Lahore, between Ahmadi scholars and some non-Ahmadi scholars of great renown. And just by way of argumentation, somebody said, please prove scientifically how it was possible that Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, was lifted to heaven and going through this space and this radiation and things, he survived by this phenomenon and reached somewhere. In which direction? Because up is here today according to you, and up is there in the opposite direction tomorrow at this time. So these things are being discussed. So one Maulvi Sahib in the team of the opponents got very impatient, he took up the floor and said, look, I'm going to answer this question. He said, but first answer my question. If you put some water in a lota, is it possible for that water to penetrate the thick wall and go across to the other side? Everybody said, no, it is not possible. He said, now bring some ice. Put that ice into the water and see what happens. Just change the temperature and it goes across side, however thick the metal is. So if that can happen, how can Jesus Christ, why should not Jesus Christ do the same thing? Why there was no barrier in between? Here it was a barrier. So the place where the debate was held, most of the audience knew this. So they had a hearty laugh. The only person who could not understand the laugh was against whom was the Maulvi Sahib himself. He was enjoying the situation as thoroughly as other people. He thought, I have made the absurdity of Afghanistan so clear to everyone that they are enjoying him accordingly. Only unfortunately much later for himself, it was too late for him. Then he was given the epithet, the title of Maulvi Loki. Wherever he went, his title went wrong. And till his death, he was called Maulvi Loki. So this is the standard of their college as far as the worldly things are concerned.
Yes, I mean,
but don't apply this the same please to having these models.
There's no comparison between our ulama and their ulama, but I was just thinking of, this. But
Yes, I'm just
hear those things, but we have already said it.
Yeah, I'm explaining it because I thought some people might misconstrue your meaning and misunderstand what you have to say. Because that impression could also be carried by your question. You know, only a few years ago, some Maulvi group came to discuss Ahmadiyya with Jim Rabba, and I was wanted to handle them. It was quite a large group, I think it was Shahpura or some other district. But anyway, the Maulvi Sahib was discussing things with me. He mentioned something which made me suspect that perhaps he does not know that the world is round. The earth is round. So I couldn't believe it because it totally happened a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. But still, he repeated that. And I said, why not ask and find out? So I said, Maulvi Sahib, would you kindly tell me if according to your concept, the world is round, the earth is round or like a plate? He said, both of course. Round like a plate. You see? There is upside, there is downside. So this is the sum total of your knowledge.
It's good. No comparison. Thank you very much.
Sir, I want to ask a reference or verse from Quran about the...
Come closer to the microphone, please, because otherwise you won't...
I want some reference from Quran or otherwise from other reliable sources that strength is used in flogging or striking in Pakistan. Strength used in flogging and striking to criminal accused persons, either to control or to limit it. Is there any control or limit?
Yes, of course.
There is no control.
I understand. The point is that you should understand Arabic language and the term Jalda as applied and used by the Arabs of the time of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Jalda was not that army lash which you call Koda today. It was simply like chitta is exactly. The Punjabi word chitta is slightly descriptive of that Jalda. It is a flat piece of leather or something, of that nature. This is why it was called Jalda. Jalda means leather, literally. And then there was no possibility of that person having died during the process of receiving that punishment. However strongly you may apply Jalda, the person could not die, because the Holy Quran speaks of such people and says that they should not be permitted, after they are punished, they should not be permitted to marry among the chaste people. If there was no question of their survival or there was a danger of their death, why should Holy Quran start speaking of life after this Jalda, after receiving this punishment?
But spoken of this
No, just a minute. You asked me a question, listen to the answer, please. From that, it is very obvious that the Jalda used in the Holy Quran is the Jalda known to Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his followers and his contemporaries. If the Jalda of today is something different, then that is not the one which is spoken of in the Holy Quran. And it is different. Secondly, that Jalda did not keep. While here, after every 5 strokes or so, a medical specialist has to attend the patient, and the person is the recipient of that punishment and go through all the checkings to find out if he will be able to sustain further punishment. If not, then it's left off. It is very rarely, of course there are some instances I know in history, where a person of a weak health or somehow during the course of his punishment died. But that was not the normal phenomenon. Here, if you apply the same punishment through the Koda of the modern days to anyone, without any break, without any leg or loose, most often than not he will die, he will not be able to survive that punishment. So it is not the same punishment as mentioned in the Holy Quran. Now you tell me what you want.
Supporter of some mullahs or advocates for this, supporter of this severe punishment.
Which severe punishment?
This strength, use of strength. Now which is being which is
I have not spoken a word against the use of strength. What I have spoken against is the type of weapon, the type of instrument of punishment. Yes. The difference lies in that direction, not in the direction of force used to apply that instrument. There are two opinions. There are also two opinions among the Muslim scholars. Some say, and they prove their case through quoting certain traditions, that while beating with that Jalda, which is not an army lash, you should not raise your elbow above the shoulder height so that the white of your armpit can be observed. That is the limit to which you can apply your power. And some say it should be fully extended hand and it can go up to any height you can raise it to. And then the force applied will be completely different. So among those non-Ahmadi scholars, there are also two groups about this. And on this issue, we're not making an issue out of this as such. They themselves are divided in two, and some Ahmadis believe this and some believe in that. But if and when the possibility of meting out such punishments in Ahmadiyyat comes up, then of course decisions will be taken at that time. and there would be such decisions that would be acceptable to everyone as the true interpretation of the Holy Quran as well as a very sensible interpretation of the Holy Quran. Yes, please. This is the last question because we have to say the prayer and after the prayer I have to go somewhere.
So what I wanted to say was that the present Fuqaha or even the Shias, they totally differ about it. And instantly what I have seen, people being punished in Iran.
Yes.
And they don't raise their hand. The seed is very small. And just bit like that, and after 30 or 40 years,
there are different, yes.
Very well walk and go. The only thing probably is that they want to punish more, I should say, psychologically rather than
yes.
bodily.
I understand that they want to bring such a person to humiliation.
That's right.
But that also is another extreme. That is not what meant what is described in the Holy Quran. It says that you should not, the pity should not prevent you from the discharge of your duty towards this injection. That shows that you are not permitted to be too lenient either.
It's painful, of course.
But to what extent? I mean, that is the point. If out of pity you are being, underhand, you are relieving him of some due pain to him, then this is
of course it's
essential.
Painful, but it's not like Pakistan. But I meant
you are telling me as if you have received it. Repeatedly you say, you are not, I know that. As much a knowledge of yours as mine.
I meant that it's differently by different Shia or Sunni because it's differently.
That is a belief. Of course.
Pakistani ulama are not like that.
All right, somebody should say Adhan, please.